got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna talk fun, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop, D-R-O-P.
Hey, this is Taylor with Believe in the Run, and the champ is in the house. Today, we are talking to Abby Hall, who is by way of Flagstaff, but we were just all in California together at the Great Western States Endurance Run, and we got to witness some amazing things from so many amazing people, but it was so wonderful to see your face come across the finish line. And I'm looking at a photo right now from our friends over at Free Trail. Maybe I'll see if I can bring it up to the screen. Do you see that photo at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so Abby, I love the finish line and the drama that comes out of the photography at the finish line. When you look at that photo, what does that bring to your heart and mind and soul?
I was feeling so many things in that moment. The first that comes to mind really is what a moment that is that I had constantly dreamed of. I mean, for me, it's one of those moments that's kind of a pinnacle of my sport of ultra running. And it's the kind of moment that, I replay in my head in training all the time of like, all right, last rep, last mile of a long run, like picture running into the track, winning Western States, or even heck, just having a great race at Western States. And there's that's hitting me. I think the greater story that is coming across my face in that moment is what all it took to get back to this place. But actually, I really feel like, happy to say, I feel like I've reached a new pinnacle. It's not like returning to what I was pre-injury experience and all of that. It's heading to a totally new place, which I think anyone who's been injured can attest to, spending so much time on the comeback, and to have not just like came back, but to have like surpassed where I was before is something that's incredibly meaningful to me. And I think in that moment too, just I'd been during the race not letting myself latch on to any sort of outcome yet, which is one reason that I really ran hard through the finish, through the track. I really wanted to finish and make it real. I even like Roby Point, like a mile ish from the finish, my husband who was pacing me is like, it's happening, like soak it up, this is real. And even then I was like, not yet, it's not real until I cross that finish line. And I wanted to hold all my celebration in until then. So I think those are some of the waves that are all hitting me in that moment where I'm looking out and seeing the finish tape and realizing what's coming for me.
So right now, over the past week, have you been carrying around the Cougar? How do you even bring something like that through, like, at the airport? Did you guys fly to Auburn?
We actually drove out in our van, but the Cougar gets shipped to you because they like engrave it with like your name and like, I don't know, maybe the time or something. I got word that the Cougar has made its way to Flagstaff. My parents picked it up off of
good.
The other night. So it's in safe hands and safe keeping. And so we're back home. We're still out in our van roving around right now. So I'm honestly really excited to see it. I got to like hold it briefly at awards, but had to let it out of my sight again for a while. And yeah, pretty excited to see it.
And you live in an area where, like, if obviously I don't think you're going to go around town holding this, going grocery shopping, holding the Cougar, but it's in a place where like people understand what that means, and like that's like you said, it's not just kind of the pinnacle of our sport. It is, especially in American ultra distance running. Like that is the championship of all championship, and that's you, Abby. So then, kind of like throughout race day, like we saw you at a few different points. We saw you at the start, and we were up on an escarpment. And then we were able to see you at Forest Hill and finish, and just kind of like going through that day. Like I'm a big fan of your coach, Coach Coop, and when he has you out there, it's almost like you're in a robotic state of like execute, 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 right? And I mean, to be at the elite level as an athlete in this sport isn't just going out and having a happenstance good day. There's 20 ladies behind you who could at any point, take that spot of like, when you walk through that day, can you give us like a little window into your brain and like for you as an athlete, do you like kind of try to shut down emotion? Do you use it to help you celebrate? Like, what is it like being out there as an elite level athlete leading this field?
I definitely tried to maintain a kind of neutral but positive mindset during the race, and really viewed it section by section. I'm definitely someone who's pretty emotionally attached to my goals, and I've learned that I can't let that part of my brain run the show on race day. Otherwise, it's really easy for me to like latch on to like it's going well, it's not going well, I'm falling apart, I'm like the whims of the mind. And I tried to stay in this neutral space so that I could really bring my best game to each moment that I needed to react to. I knew that I had to kind of turn off the emotions for a little bit and really operate from this place of um, the familiarity of training that that I've built to get to this point, and just like kind of stay in this neutral headspace, and even like not latching on to the outcome until that very finish moment is kind of part of that. Was almost being on and being kind of in my like race day character, so to speak. And yeah, so like I think going out, initially I was curious how many girls were gonna go with me. I At the top of the escarpment came through and first, which I didn't learn until after the race. Up until recent years was previously like some kind of curse or something like, but
Yeah.
and yeah, my friend Katie was telling me that apparently like that rule's been broken the last few years. So um, yeah, I honestly remember early in the race thinking, even if there were 10 girls ahead of me right now, this is the exact pace and effort level I need to be running at. I train a lot by RPE and by feel, so like rate of perceived exertion, and just I think that that really comes in handy on race day when you are trying to spread the effort across many hours. I had a lot of long runs to pull from and just tried to focus on making it feel as much like the work I put in as I could. I had a couple women through the high country and into the canyons, Ida and Martina, that we were all kind of swapping around. And I had like some, like different things to fiddle with at aid stations. I got a sock thing and whatever. So we were shuffling around, but usually like within eyesight of each other, like just kind of each running like 15 to 30 seconds apart from one another, ebbing and flowing with the terrain. And yeah, I realized kind of early on that I felt like I was moving really well in the climbs. So decided to make some moves in the canyons, and came out of Michigan Bluff in the lead, and then ultimately held that lead from Michigan Bluff to the finish. And obviously, to your point, knew that there was just an absolute, lineup of women behind me running really, really fast. And I knew I was very conscious of the fact that they were all behind me. But yeah, worked on really just trying to hold the gap the best I could from Michigan Bluff to the finish.
And you've been part of the trail running space for quite a while, and seeing how it's evolved. When did you start trail running? We can go to that point, I
I
guess.
ran my first. I mean, so I did my first trail races when I was a kid, like in fifth grade. But like trail and ultra running as I know it now, I started in 2016.
Okay.
I had been hearing about the sport and wanted in on it. I was like, this is exactly how I want to be spending my time. It was above all, like the sport really aligned with my values of wanting to get out, push myself, do big adventures, share it with people. And so I moved to Boulder in 2016, really with the intention of like, I want to get into the sport and see what I can do at it. Um, and yeah, since then have been pretty hooked on this process of like continual self improvement and seeing how much I can get out of myself, and just honestly genuinely enjoyed that journey so much. And have been, yeah, really happy to like continue to reach new highs like at this point in my career.
And where were you coming from before being in Boulder, and now you're in Flagstaff? Like, where were you coming from, and like, was your family into trails? Like, be doing a race at like fifth grade? Like, how does that all
I
come?
mean, yeah, I grew up spending a lot of time outside and camping. My family and I would make the family pilgrimages out to Colorado every year. And like from a really young age, I got really hooked on like trying to like go far on the trails. Like even I know you're in Estes Park, like going, we would go out to Longs Peak, and every year I would like see how much further I could get. And usually there'd be like, you know, a thunderstorm would roll in, or like, you know, like a
Yeah,
ton of wind at the Boulder field or something like that. And each year we'd go a little further, and my parents would be like, okay, we have to turn around now. And I would like cry, I want to go further. And like, so I have these memories as a kid of just like
such a
being,
weird kid.
I know, totally. Yeah, of just like being like, I just wanted to be like, you know, the people I saw in the parking lot with their headlamps and their
Yeah,
packs all geared up for big days out. I was like, I want to be that when I grow up. And started running, yeah, like a little bit before like end of elementary school, before middle school, just as a fun thing. Like I don't know, you run like the mile as a kid in school, and like I
get that
was
presidential fitness award.
exactly, yeah, like was really into like trying to like beat the boys and stuff like that. And so like I think signed up for track and cross country, and then like got really like into being part of a team and just like the fun that comes from that. And it was such a cool way to like frame growth at a skill, like being part of a team, competing, being scored as a team. Like I just really genuinely enjoyed that. Um, but like I guess like looking back to more like those years prior to like getting into ultra running, so like I mainly grew up in the Chicago area, but after college went out to Los Angeles where I was working like in creative fields as a graphic designer, and doing like work on photo sets and things like that out there. And at that point in time was like doing some road marathons for fun, like not at a high level or anything, but just like, you know, I'd ran in college at that point and was like just genuinely enjoying keeping up with some training. So I'd like finish my workday, go run like laps around the park at night. And like I started to spend more time in the mountains. So I was going out to like the Eastern Sierra, a few hours away from LA, and was mainly going there at that point for climbing, doing a lot of climbing and trying to find friends that wanted to climb and do stuff in the mountains. And then I'd come home and catch up on marathon training, like on the roads. And I started to like realize, oh, I like see people running on these trails around here. I wonder if I could like do some running while I was up here. And yeah, like just kind of developed this natural curiosity around it. Started researching like, you know, what fastest times people had done some of these routes on, and kind of like started to discover that it was like a whole scene. And
Yeah, when
immediately,
you had to go to the blog and not just the FKT site.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. At this point in time, it was like, yeah, blogs, podcasts. And I just got really hooked on kind of like what felt like this very devoted community that was, yeah, was pursuing these things and wanted to be part of it. I've always really enjoyed like even within LA, like I loved finding kind of these like smaller subsets of communities of people really devoted to things, whether it was like, yeah, like in my background, like in graphic design or photography or things like that. And meeting the people that were like part of these like core scenes of people that were really devoted to things. Or I even looked like that, like at bands I was into, like in high school, of just like following a band around. And I just like have always liked being part of like circles of people that are really devoted to something and being like very all in on it. And so the same thing kind of unfolded with me and like trail and ultra running. Like moved to Boulder, started going to every group run in town, and basically just being like, "Hi, I'm Abby. You want to run?" And said yes to every adventure. That's where I met my husband, Cordis, and kind of like, yeah, the rest is kind of history from there. I mean, it's a sport that like hooks into your heart and doesn't really let up. And yeah,
Were those at RMR runs that you met?
yep, yep.
Whoa,
So yeah, so
okay.
yeah, we met specifically at the time. Like there were some different like brand group runs in town, and that's how Cordis and I met. And he was also, yeah, a member of Rocky Mountain Runners, and started adventuring with a lot of people from that group. And yeah, and Cordis and I immediately bonded over our love of like both like ultra running as well as like a lot of like climbing, scrambling, mountain stuff at the time, which was kind of like another portal into it for me. Like, yeah, coming from that climbing background a little bit. And I think over the years, at least for me, it's become more of the like racing emphasis. But yeah, like early on, I think a lot of it was around like big goals in the mountains. And that's been a really formative part of landing where I'm at now, because I mean, I think you learn a lot about yourself doing, 30, 40, 50 hour stretches in the mountains and taking care of yourself. And I think actually that there's like a lot of people towing the lines at races nowadays who have never been out for that long. And I think it's a nice skill to know like you can take care of yourself for that amount of time. And it makes a race like Western States actually feel like relatively short. I'm like, oh, like, 16 and a half
Yeah.
hours. Like, I know how to take care of myself for that amount of time and push for that amount of time. I'm not even like skipping any sleep here. So
Yeah.
I think it like helps, still helps like stick with me as like a good perspective to have kind of coming from that background.
And I know, like, when you approach a race like Western States or really any ultra, um, it's intriguing to me that you're a climber. Do you approach it from like a climber standpoint almost of like you need to know where your handholds are, where you're gonna place your feet, where you're gonna, hook and rope. Like, do you see that
Yeah,
influence
I
at
would
all?
say not so much. I honestly, I mean, I was never like a super good climber or anything. I think I really enjoyed just like the feeling of like big adventures outside, and climbing was like the first outdoor sport that like I was exposed to that had a dose of that. So like putting a
Hmm.
project together and like, having like a partner and like knowing like mastering the details. I think climbing was like the first medium that I discovered that contained those things. But I think because running was something I had known since I was a kid, it felt like a natural thing to kind of be returning to an emphasis on, even though it was looking a little bit different doing it like in the mountains and on trails.
Yeah, I like that you said medium of like it's almost like an art form. Really, any of these sports, like sure, there's a performance and black and white part of it, but there's a lot of gray area and color within it too. So yeah, that's an
Yeah.
interesting way of putting it.
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, I think of it as being really about like an expression of values to me. Like it's uh I don't know, running is just running, and I'm okay with viewing the sport that way, but it is also so much more. Like I really see it as both. I don't feel like my running needs to be necessarily like about something else. I genuinely like enjoy the act of doing it and putting one foot in front of the other, but it does feel like the way it has taken root in my life has become about like this expression of values and about trying hard and about like getting the most out of ourselves, and you know like relying on the team around us for support. Like these are all kind of things that make the journey more meaningful to me, and yeah, make it more than that.
Yeah, I felt like that when I moved to the mountains too. Of like I never been in a place that I geographically brought out who I was and my passions more, but that's also the same with running, I guess. Of like it's it's an extension of who you are through the activity you're doing. That's a
Yeah,
great way of putting it. So
yeah,
then, as you're running again, Western States, coming back to Western States, it's just such a monumental thing for you as a runner in your career, just to have that on like your ultra sign up or whatever, and like, what does it mean to you now that you're a week removed to have not only like conquered the day, and maybe there was many like conquerings throughout the day, right? Of like those races are hard on their own for many different reasons. Like, what does it mean to you if, like, you're sitting in your van in Hard Rock and enjoying still the racing space, and but when you think back to that day and that performance, like, what are you most proud of?
Mm. I mean, I think I'm proud to like have officially made it like far further in the sport than like I could have ever imagined. I really I don't know, I think a lot of it started kind of as this like fun thing to do on the weekends, this kind of bucket list way of living and trying to like do big things, but it's turned into so much more than that, and I've been so like just I've just genuinely enjoyed how much the journey has developed over the years. I feel really proud that like I have never given up on myself and that I've continued believing in myself through the highs and lows. And it's like cool to see that process, that emphasis on self-belief like actually worked. I mean, it's like, it's obviously nice for like the personal growth side of things, but to also see that it actually has had an impact and built up to something sizable in my life and like what I'm actually able to accomplish has been really cool. I think I'm a big believer that like, I've had good races, I've had bad races, and neither changed my life all that much. I mean, this is a really exciting milestone that I'm celebrating for sure, but also like, you know, the important things don't change. Like, I'm still off in the van with my husband right now, enjoying time camping with friends. And those same friends are the ones that were, there for me when I was hurt or when I had bad races. And they're the same ones that are fun to celebrate the highs with. So I think I've always been a big fan of just taking the 30,000 foot view and doing this for the long game. And yeah, like I think as exciting of a milestone as this is, I'm also trying to remember that like the same journey that got me here is like the same path that takes me forward from this. And, I take a lot of comfort in knowing like I've got an awesome team in place and people to kind of like review, like the process is the same after this race as it is after any other race, like review what worked, what didn't, see where we can learn, where we can grow, where we can improve and, celebrate and look forward. So, um, yeah, I've been like as excited as I am about it. I'm also wanting to make sure that it's not like, cool, I've reached a career high, time to change everything. Because I
Yeah.
also think that can be a dangerous like trap to fall into.
Hey, this is Taylor with Believe in the Run. Again, we had a little bit of difficulty last time we recorded with Abby. She was out in the middle of the San Juan Mountains right before Hard Rock 100 after her major win at Western States. And, it's hard to record in the middle of nowhere. And so we have her back again because not everything recorded. And I just want to say thank you, Abby, for coming on again and joining us.
Of course. Thank you, Taylor. Happy to be hopping on for the rest of our conversation where we left off last time.
Yeah. And when we recorded originally, we left off talking about you having like a creative side and the idea of exploration really having a major influence in your training and trail running. And I'd like to get into some of the goal side of it here pretty soon because you did mention you're pretty goal oriented. And maybe that goal oriented personality has led you to a big summer of training, it seems like, even after Western States. So, how has summer been going now that we're a couple months removed from our last conversation?
Yeah, summer has been going great. Honestly, I took most of July just really mellow to just really focus on like fully recovering from mind, body, and soul and how they were all pretty busy in the weeks and months leading up to Western States. I think it's easy to get really normalized to like that pace of racing and training and prep. And yeah, it was good to just really slow it down. Like went off in the van, camped with friends, enjoyed some time in the San Juans, did some easy running at home, but otherwise just like enjoyed time like with family and friends. And honestly, like really just took some time to soak in what happened in June. And it's like just been such an exciting summer. And it's also been really fast paced. So I've been trying to make sure that I've like taken time to really process things before I like make any moves on what's next. Yeah, but I do feel like in a more comfortable place to share about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After such a large event and like huge effort, do you find that like there's one area of life that feels more tired? Like, are you more tired mentally, physically? I mean, obviously, many
Mm,
people would think it would be the physical part, but being an elite athlete, there's so many more demands than just going out there to run it. Like,
yeah, totally. I mean, I think emotionally, mentally is probably the biggest drain, if I'm being honest. I think, the runs come around within like a week or so. Like even if I'm not back to big training, I can go like enjoy an easy run and feel solid. At least like fortunately I've had that in recent races, but like mentally and emotionally, I feel like especially recovering from Western states has been, yeah, major in that way. I think especially because of how it went. It like kind of is like the race started and then the whole situation just kept like escalating and then I won and then it was like all the stuff beyond the finish line and I feel like it took a long time for it to really slow down. And so yeah, I think placing some emphasis on that emotional and mental side has been the most important for me. So a big way I've done that has been like trying to just have kind of like very non-stimulating time at home of just like trying to like keep off my phone a bit, be outside, like cook some good food, like just really get back to basics.
and then, I mean, you're at home with your husband, who's also a very talented runner. Do you find that part of recovery hard? Of like, was he ready? Like when you guys are in the San Juans, he's up and going everywhere. And is that hard too? Like sometimes having another elite athlete at home?
I'm like not someone who is like needs to be like doing big training. Like I do a lot of big training, but I am definitely like, you can have it. The mountains are all yours today. I'm
Yeah.
kind of here sitting and chilling and drinking coffee. And I'm very okay with that. Yeah, I think like that kind of balance between Cordis and I was definitely like I think it was probably more of a challenge for me when I was injured, like when you really want to be out there and you
Mm,
can't. That's like
hmm.
really different than the like voluntary and celebratory time away, which is like pretty fun and you kind of want to bask in it because it's not gonna like, you'll be back at training soon enough.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you had mentioned your injury, and that's something in our conversation we haven't really gotten to yet. You had a pretty monumental injury that was not only like groundbreaking, earth shattering a little bit as an athlete, but also as a human. Like you had quite the injury that was life altering. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about that and kind of your, yeah, let's just go there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so in 2023, I was out for an easy like 60-minute training run from my house and like about 5 minutes of running away from the house on my way back, I hyperextended my knee. So came down kind of hard on my heel and my knee went backwards, like out of socket and back in. So then my femur crashed into my tibia, and then I tore a bunch of tendons and cartilage and broke the bone and like just really did a number on pretty much everything that could go wrong in a knee. Um, and yeah, then had like some complications during like until I could get surgery with blood clots and like it just really the whole situation just felt like it kept getting worse and it was really hard to like see a light on the other side. Like I had hoped to just like be able to like get back to what I loved, but I had no idea like what kind of quality I'd be able to return to as an athlete. So yeah, that the accident was in June, surgery was in July. And then in September, Adidas Terrex set me up at this fantastic rehabilitation facility where I went and spent some time. It was in Austria, and it was such a cool setup of different specialists and doctors, PTs, all under one roof. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
almost like the equivalent of like going to school, but for like your injury, where it was like I
Yeah.
would start off and have like a meeting with the doctor in the morning, and then I would go, like I felt like a kid walking around. Yeah, I wasn't walking yet, but like going
Yeah.
around, going around with my schedule and being like, all right, time for underwater therapy, time for a lymph massage, time for like, PT, time for strength, like, and yeah, went and spent several weeks there, and during that time was able to like transition back into walking again, which was a bigger deal than I thought it would be. I kind of just thought like you just start walking again.
Yeah.
But I was it was like a really great point in my recovery to be there like with specialists who kind of like helped me like learn those biomechanics again of like walking properly, making sure I'm not compensating. And then from there, it was I think another 3 months until I was able to try and run. And so, yeah, it was, and then from there, like a big journey to get back to like the quality of training I wanted. It was like
Mm-hmm.
I was more keenly aware than ever that like it wasn't just like the act of running I was returning to, but like a very complex, advanced version of running very, very far through, you know, challenging environments. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I felt the weight of that more than ever of how big of a thing I was trying to return to. Like, no one is owed the experience or opportunity of being an ultra runner. It's a very hard earned thing to get there in the first place.
Yeah.
And it was all in all an incredibly long and ultimately fulfilling journey of clawing my way back.
And as a fan of the sport, like right prior to your injury, like you were at the top of your game. Like you were hugely up and coming. And was that like an emotional thing that you had to come to terms with of like, there's potential I might never get back to that? Or is that kind of the
Yeah.
heavy personal weight you were referring to?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's, one of the first questions I remember asking my surgeon was kind of like, when am I going to be able to be back at 100%? And he's kind of like, well, what is 100%? Are you ever really
Hmm.
100%? Kind of bringing up these theoretical
Oh,
questions.
wow. Yeah.
And, like I think overall, I had to kind of make peace with the unknown of the journey ahead. I think it wasn't until I really let go of the fact that I was not able to control when I would be able to return to running and what that would look like. It wasn't until I reached that point of letting go and acknowledging that I couldn't control it that I feel like I was able to make peace with what the journey really was as it was unfolding. Um,
And did that
Prior
flip from like kind of like stifling to motivating, or was that like, were you kind of in that balance?
Well, I think the way I was looking at it at the time was like I have I've gotten here once and I know how to do it. I know how to do it again. Like I've
Hmm.
got a blueprint to return there. It just, I think it was daunting because up until that point I had been, racing for was it 7 years? So it took a long time for me to get to that point in my career.
Hmm.
And I was like, is it going to take that long again? How much do I have to return or like relearn here? And yeah, I think ultimately, I remember reading a great quote at one point, like, you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. And that kind of quickly became apparent with once I was able to return to running, just like the familiarity of it was so comforting. I think even compared to like getting back to walking, which actually felt really foreign and awkward and clunky, like running
Yeah.
somehow felt so just like those first little shuffle steps on the treadmill in the PT office, I remember just felt like like really coming home, and that was so comforting. But even like once I had returned to running, it was still a very like non-linear journey. I think it's easy to, project, like to draw that line from there to like winning Western States and assume that that's the trajectory it took. But like, I also, in the meantime, had like a very rough UTMB that I walked in, and even I don't feel like I quite like performed at my best in either the golden ticket races that I did going into Western States. And like, I feel like it really took a lot of like trust in the vision of what I could return to and what this was all building to. But yeah, so it's been a long journey for sure.
I feel like that's something that many athletes like need to hear. I've been through injury, a more major injury, not quite as catastrophic as you, but there's a lot of runners who go through those injuries and kind of can get into a dark hole and stay there if you wanted to. And I was just going to mention, like, it for Adidas Terrex they've been a model in a lot of ways in terms of like taking care of their athletes and promoting this team mentality of like, that's incredible that they had that facility for you to be there and not just like wait for you to come out of what you were experiencing. And does that team mentality or that care kind of has that been part of your whole experience with Adidas Terrex?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started with Terex was kind of like when the team was being formed, and obviously like we've grown a ton during the time that I've been with the brand.
How long
But
have you been with them?
I started in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was there like at our first team training camp in Fuerteventura, and like it's just been so cool to not only like grow as an athlete myself during that time, but like watching the brand and the team grow so much. And yeah, I feel like really honored to have like, been able to play my small role in that. So like, I think even, during injury, having the camaraderie and support of teammates that were just a phone call away or just a FaceTime away, I remember like that summer, everyone being out here in Chamonix and like, just like, getting a phone call and everyone's at the dinner table here in Chamonix, putting me on speakerphone to like, chat and kind of hang out from afar, and just like
That's
those
amazing.
little things that like make you feel like, yeah, part of something bigger and beyond just like your own journey in the sport, but feel supported from all sides is the type of thing that made this easier to get through.
And just based off of social media, it seems like many of you are in the Alps right now. Is that many Terex
Yeah.
athletes? How is that being
Yeah.
able to like kind of continue that team building and training together?
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, we're all out here in like a team chalet right now. So it's super fun just doing life around the house together, sharing time in the trails, cooking meals together. And, honestly, like I think with as big as UTMB is getting, I do feel like you start to see a difference between the the athletes that are maybe coming out here and sitting in a hotel room by themselves the whole time
Hmm.
and getting nervous, and those that are like able to share it with like either like some friends that they came out with, or like if they were able to bring their partner or their family. Like I think especially from an elite perspective, like having that camaraderie around is a big part of being able to manage the pressure and build up of such a big event. And yeah, so being here in the chalet with everyone is a really like, we've done this for a number of years now, and I feel like really lucky to have a setup that makes me feel like my best me, and like I'm not as far from home as I might actually be.
Yeah. And I mean, at these huge races at Western States, Adidas Terrex, if we were going to like cross country score, most of these major races, Adidas Terrex routinely comes out as like the top team and best performers. Is I mean, you have incredible athletes on that team for one, but do you feel like that team mentality and really ups the performance at these big events? Because you guys are this for trail running, this elite scene is pretty new, to be honest, because our sport is like 15 years old-ish in terms of a competitive sport. Do you feel
Mm.
like that team mentality really elevates everybody?
I do. I think that like when I was first like starting to toe the line at these bigger races, it can be really easy to feel just like so nervous and like there's so much in the line. But I think when you have like good people around you and you feel like you're not alone, it feels like there's less on the line. And yeah, I think that can be like a really important part of performing well, is not feeling like you need to attain some outcome for the time invested to have been worth it, or for the trip out there to have been worth it. Like I usually feel like, especially when we're in this team environment leading up to a race, like the race day comes around and it's like, it's already been worth it. Like just to have the time out here with everyone and to like make memories and, you know, yeah, just like good living. So I feel really, really fortunate to like have such amazing people around me and in my corner.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're in Chamonix for a reason, not just to hang out with everybody, I heard. So, what's coming next for Abby Hall?
I am going to be toeing the line at UTMB. So yeah, I like kind of, I was like looming, like the decision was kind of looming in July. And I ultimately just wanted to like kick the decision down the road to make sure I wasn't like hopping into the next thing too quick. But honestly, I've felt a real growing excitement to be back here and to be back at that start line. And
Hmm.
it's such a special race. And I think for me now this year, it's like becoming, for me personally, kind of about like redeeming a rough go out here last year. Like UTMB was the big goal for me during my injury. Like that was, one of the things that was such a beacon and like a kind of like this distant lighthouse that I would think of so often in my recovery. And that was mainly just because at the time I was supposed to run UTMB in 2023 and was able to defer it to 2024. So it was like the next immediate race opportunity I knew I had. And so I feel like coming back here this year is like, for me, kind of about like still like making that past version of myself proud, and like doing what I believe I can do out here. And so that's kind of where the why is coming from for me for this one.
And when you make a decision like that in the same year, there's been only a handful of people who have done the Western States and UTMB double and done it well. So when you make a decision like that as an elite, like, was that you just coming to terms with, I feel good, I'm going for it? Or is this like, or is this a conversation between you, your coach, the team? Like, how did that look?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. I think like the first part, first and foremost, has to be like, is my heart in it? Do I want to do it? And then, having like conversations with my coaches, with Terex, making sure that this feels like a smart decision, like a wise choice to make. And ultimately, like it's just I felt like real momentum and a pull towards the opportunity. I think, I'd love to say that like, I think one thing we hear about like injuries and things like that is like, oh, it, taught me patience, which I think in some ways it did teach me patience, but I actually feel like really above all, my injury taught me like the importance of now and like how this actually doesn't last forever. Not like to, of course, like rush through an injury or like make
Yeah.
dumb decisions, but I just mean it in the sense of like, we never know like what tomorrow holds. And I feel nothing but opportunity right now. And I just want to embrace that. And, I think the other piece for me has been kind of deciding like, do I just like enjoy the kind of fun momentum from Western states? Am I really willing to like kind of put my head out in the chopping block again and like throw myself into the fire, whatever the metaphor is?
Hmm.
And for me, the answer is yes. Like, I'm not an athlete that is like, trying to like necessarily have this like perfect streak of wins or like create some illusion that I like win every race I do. That's never been me. For me, like being an athlete is about like continuing to grow and like, you know, redefine what I like think is possible for myself. And so this is a cool opportunity to keep growing, and that's really what excites me right now.
That's amazing. I have so many more questions, but I think that's just a great place to leave it right now because um, there's so many Abby Hall fans out there, and we're just excited to continue to see what you do in the sport and just the role model that you are for so many of us. So thank you for your time, and just best of luck at the biggest race in the world for trail running.
Thank you so much, Taylor. It's been a really fun conversation, and yeah, I appreciate all your thoughtfulness.
Thank you, Abby.
Give a good stretch, got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna tuck run, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop.